Welcome to another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. I am your host, Rafi Pinsky. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, leave your comments. And of course, for all of your real estate needs in South Florida, I would love to help you. This week, we have former Brigadier General Amir Avivi of the IDF, somebody that I've been following for quite a while. He's been on quite a few podcasts in the last year. I mean, yeah, even longer than that. And he has a very direct take on the last 2 years of war, the current conflict. Somebody who is a very eloquent speaker for someone where English isn't his first language, and nonetheless, says a lot of the things that need to be said. Where now we're dealing with not only a challenge with boots on the ground, but also the media war. And Amir is taking part in fighting that war. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So recently you were on Tal Oran's channel, and I didn't get to watch everything, but I definitely watched a nice chunk of it. And just to quickly get into your background a little bit. Give us a little bit of a background on what you did in the Israeli army, just so we can have a little bit better context.
Yeah. So, I come from a family that has been living in Jerusalem 15 generations. My family arrived to Israel in 1620. Was born in Jerusalem, but spent most of my young life traveling around the world. My father was a diplomat and eventually became Israel's ambassador in several countries. So most of my young education was in international schools. I graduated from a British high school. Came back in 1987 to Israel to join the army, the combat engineers, and served 30 years in the army. Among other things, I was a battalion commander in Operation Defensive Shield. I was the aide-de-camp of the Chief of General Staff, Moshe Bogi Elon, where I got to see things really on the strategic level. I was Deputy Division Commander of the Gaza Strip. I also commanded the Egyptian border. Commanded the School of Combat Engineers, and in my last position, I was the chief auditor of the All Israeli Defense Establishment. So I audited the readiness for war, budgeting projects in the Army, in the Ministry of Defense, and the military industries. Again, having a chance to see things really on the national level.
Uh-huh. So you played a big role in decision making and key decision making.
Yeah, definitely. I was in some of the really crucial moments in Israel's history talking about decision making.
Right. So just a couple of points that I'd like to cover in the short time we'll be speaking. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to sit down again. Now, in the last 2 years, it took us a while to get the hostages back. From my perspective, and I have a feeling you would agree, I think our goal, as much as we wanted the hostages back, and thank God we were able to get at least you know all of the ones that are living now. It was very painful to get there. A lot of soldiers died, many more injured, many civilians died, many civilians injured. Uh, but I think the goal always needed to be the defeat of not only Hamas, but truthfully, if we're being honest, the Gazan people, because they play there's a collective interest in fighting Israel. If we're being frank, if we're being totally honest about it. And so, even though it would have been better if I think we were able to finish this war in the first 2 weeks of following October 7th, maybe we wouldn't have had enough time to uh, defeat Hezbollah, hurt the Houthis terribly, overthrow, help push Assad out of government, all these other things. I guess what's your feeling on that? I'm just kind of concerned, like many Jews and Israelis are, of what's to come? We have the hostages back, at least the living ones. Hamas is now running around killing people. Where do we go from here?
On the 7th of October, when the war started, a few hours after the beginning, Israel declared a state of war. We haven't declared a state of war since the Yom Kippur War 50 years before. And immediately afterwards, Israel set crystal clear goals of war, which we are on the verge of reaching, but we haven't reached yet. And none of the goals of war are completely achieved yet. One goal of war was to eradicate Hamas as a governmental and military entity. Hamas cannot stay in Gaza. The second goal was to bring back all our hostages. We started with 251. And now we have hostages who are not alive, still in Gaza, and we have to bring them back. But certainly, we managed to bring many hostages during the war, and especially lately, all the 20 hostages that remained alive in Gaza. And the third goal was to demilitarize the Gaza completely. So Gaza will never pose again a threat to Israel. All these goals exist in Trump's plan, in the 20 points that were agreed upon, not just by Israel and the US, but also the whole Arab world and Turkey, Qatar, Europe. Everybody agreed to this plan. This plan enables Israel to reach all goals of war. The challenge is to implement it. The first phase of the plan, Hamas was supposed to bring all the hostages, those who are alive and not alive, in 72 hours. It didn't happen. They returned the hostages that are alive. They returned some of the hostages who are not alive, but not all of them. So already Hamas is breaching the agreement. After 72 hours, phase 2 started, which is basically Hamas laying down their weapons and getting out of Gaza. And this didn't happen. Hamas is killing opponents in Gaza. It has attacked yesterday Israeli soldiers and unfortunately killed an officer and a soldier. And it doesn't show any willingness to lay down their weapons. So we are in a moment where both the government of Israel and the administration in the US have to show they are serious about reaching the agreement and the goals of war. It can be done, as the Israeli Prime Minister said, the nice way or the hard way. It's either Hamas really lay down the weapon, which I think they won't do, probably. It will be very hard diplomatically to get them to surrender, or we'll have to do it the hard way. And the hard way is the IDF renewing its offensive and dismantling Hamas physically. And I think that in the coming week or two, we'll see which option is relevant. My assessment is that we are going back to maneuvering or attacking and putting serious pressure on Hamas to lay down their weapons and get out of Gaza. I must say that the fact that Israel is holding in this agreement already 53% of Gaza, the fact that we are in Rafah, in the Philadelphia corridor, we are surrounding Hamas from all sides. This gives us a serious strategic advantage and enable us to really enhance the pressure until Hamas is dismantled. And you talked about the Gazan society. Israel is not fighting the Gazans, it's fighting Hamas, but we know that all of them, or most of them, have been radicalized. They are supporters of Hamas. Many of them assist Hamas and participated also on the 7th of October. This society needs to be de-radicalized completely, and I think many of them will choose to leave Gaza once they will be able to live through the Rafah crossing, once the crossing is opened. So certainly we cannot live alongside a society that really wants to completely annihilate us. And part of the process is really changing the education from scratch and de-radicalizing the society, just as post Second World War in Germany and in Japan, where when the Marshall Plan was really executed.
Right. I think I appreciate that you said everything directly. I am also very happy that 53% is being held still. Um, how many dead hostages do we still how many have we gotten back? Five? I think what it was it
Yeah, there were 28, and they gave us part of those hostages, and I think there's just 18, if I'm correct, that haven't returned yet. So they're breaching the agreement. They should have done that in 72 hours. We know that they know where they are, and they're trying to buy time to regroup, to reorganize. This is not something we can agree. We want to see this organization dismantled and not getting stronger again. And every day that we don't renew the military operation, it's another day that Hamas regroups and gets stronger, and this endangers our soldiers. So I'm well aware of the diplomatic side. I know how complicated it is to coordinate these things with the US, with the Arab world, getting the legitimacy needed to do something that the world doesn't want to see, renewing fighting and the war. Prime Minister Netanyahu said on TV this week, the war is not over. It's not over until we reach all goals of war, and they will be reached one way or another. I must say that it's Israel's interest and also the US to do it fast, because both countries want to move forward to the next step, to normalizing relations with the moderate Sunni Arab world in the region and also beyond, all the way to Indonesia, Malaysia. You cannot move to normalization and peace agreements before there is a decisive win in Gaza and the war really ends with us reaching all goals of war. So we don't have a lot of time. There are elections next year, both in Israel and in the US. In the US, it's the midterm elections. In Israel, it's the national elections. And both leaders want to reach this point after the war really ends in Gaza, with all goals achieved, and peace signs are signed, and we really change the whole Middle East.
Right. Right. No, that's a fair point. We do have midterm elections in the US and we have another election with in Israel where Bibi of course plans to be reelected. Now, what I just want to go into with you is obviously Israel wants the hostages who aren't alive to come back to be returned, and we want Hamas to surrender. My question to you is, do you feel confident in Israel's decision, though, to effectively pull out of Gaza if we do get those uh, demands met? You know, because even if Hamas isn't in power anymore, we both know that another group is going to replace them. We're trusting this Trump plan where some other non-violent group, whether that's a combination of alliances, of Arab alliances, it just sounds like, in a way, my concern is that we're going to be putting ourselves back in a similar position as opposed to annexing Gaza and annexing Judah and Shomron, Judea and Samaria. That just seems like it's something that we're going to inevitably have to do. I feel like we're kicking the can down the road again. Do you disagree? Do you see it differently?
So the agreement says that as long that there is no full demilitarization of Gaza, Israel stays on the 53%. and it might be more if we don't see any changes at the moment. So Israel has all the time in the world to really see that there is complete demilitarization and dismantling of the terror organizations in Gaza, and this might take years. And in all this time, Israel is holding 53% of Gaza Strip and Rafah and Philadelphia. If Gaza is completely demilitarized, then there is a completely different reality, then Israel doesn't retreat of Gaza. Yes, it retreats a bit back, but it still stays on Philadelphia and parts of Rafah. It still stays along the perimeter. It still stays in the northern part of Gaza forever. So Israel is basically forever controlling Gaza Strip, and Israel will have full freedom of operation, just as we enjoy Judea and Samaria, to operate freely anywhere and foil any attempt to build again terror infrastructure. And I think that reaching an agreement like that, this is a huge, huge success. Now, maybe if the dynamics will be that hundreds of thousands or maybe more Gazans will choose to leave, and Gaza, is going to empty, then certainly you can talk about in the long term, applying Israeli sovereignty in certain areas in coordination with the U.S. But this remains to be seen. It's not part of the current plan. When we talk about Judea and Samaria, that's a completely different issue. I think it's crucial that in the coming years that Trump is still president, and after signing these regional global peace agreements, that Israel will put a clear plan that includes applying Israeli sovereignty, the Israeli law, over vast areas in Judea and Samaria, while creating some kind of self-governance in the Palestinian cities. Israel doesn't intend to annex 2 million Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. We don't want to give 2 million Arabs Israeli citizenship. So you have to combine a solution of self-governance, which is not a state. It might be maybe Emirates, based on clans, some kind of cantonization. I think there is no future, of course, not with Hamas, not with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and certainly not with the Palestinian Authority. They're all terror organizations. They all want to destroy Israel. We need to move towards a different solution based on the local leaderships. We see it also in Gaza and the IDF and the Israeli government working with local clans that are fighting alongside Israel. It's amazing to see clans in Gaza fighting alongside Israel against Hamas. And today Israel is deploying clans to control areas, which in the area we control, in Rafah, in parts of Khan Yunis, in the northern part. This is a viable solution in the long term. And we need to really put a clear plan what we want, because when we'll come to the US and say, we want to apply our sovereignty over big areas in Judea and Samaria, we also have to say at the same time, what is the solution? What will happen in the places where we don't apply the Israeli law? The overall sovereignty in the land of Israel will be Israeli, but certainly we want to find a solution that adheres to Israel's national security and national aspirations on one hand, but also adhere to the idea of not having to annex millions of Arabs to Israel.
That's a good answer, Amir. That's a really good answer. It aligns a lot with Dr. Kedar's ideas, from what I understand. I mean, I have a confidence that his ideas have influenced, have permeated, as we say, have uh, people high up in the Israeli government, I think, have heard him out and have listened to him, and I very much agree with that. We can't have millions of Palestinian quote unquote Arab Muslim citizens undermining the Jewish majority, because we already have 21%. That's already a very high number. And with Gaza and the West Bank, that already at least makes it equal, if not more, and that would be a challenge. But I do think there just needs to be no possibility of any kind of Palestinian state. I just from I mention this on my channel all the time. When Israel even gives any sort of a tiny crumb of an idea that there is a possibility for them to create a Palestinian state, that emboldens them to continue to fight us. Meaning not to say that that would be the only reason they would fight us, but that alone is such a large component because you and I both know that it's not that they want a state, it's that they want us to not have one. So
Yeah, I agree.
giving, but just if we're willing to give them something, they might take it just so they could have everything. And that's just we can't do that.
I think it's the biggest problem. I think it's us. It's the ability of Israel to envision what it wants and push the policies towards reaching our own visions. Because when you talk to Israeli leaders in the last 10, 20 years, and you ask them about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, they'll say, we have to manage it. You know, there won't be a solution. We have to manage it. And the idea is not to manage. The idea is to put a clear vision and execute it. Israel doesn't need a Palestinian agreement to apply its sovereignty over most of Judea and Samaria. It needs an American agreement. And I think this can be reached with President Trump. And I understand that at the moment, the priority is first winning the war. I understand that the US priority is afterwards signing these regional global peace agreements. But the next step afterwards need to be an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that is agreed upon between Israel and the US. Once the US supports applying sovereignty, it's game over. And we need to really push it strongly because we have one chance in history to do it and to do it right.
I hear what you're saying. Do you when you say we have one chance, do you mean now is the chance? Why do you say that we wouldn't technically have a chance later on because of the fact that Trump's president, we might not have a Trump again?
We have a unique moment where we have a president and the prime minister that are strong enough and resolute enough to really, really make history and take the right decision towards applying sovereignty and shaping the reality for generations to come. Because once you do it, you really ended the conflict in a way that makes sure that Israel will be safe for generations to come. I think President Trump is someone who thinks out of the box. He understands new ideas. Is not attached, to all the dogmas that are not relevant, like the two-state solution. So we have a unique moment. I don't know what will happen 3 years later. Who will be prime minister in Israel? Who will be president in the US? What will be the dynamics then? We cannot wait. We need to seize the moment and really secure Israel in the long term.
There's a very good Israeli politician. His name is Amir Avivi. I think if he decided to go for the chair, he'd probably have some votes. Just a thought.
There's a lot of pressure on me personally and on the leadership of IDSF, of Habithonistim, Israel's Defense and Security Forum, to really emanate leadership to Israel. I think that definitely Israeli people are seeking new leadership. And the leadership in Israel is not going to change in one election. It's not in a parliamentarian system, you're not going to change all parties at once, but needs to start somewhere. And we need to start growing new leadership. And I believe that probably in 2 elections, in 4 or 5 years, Israeli Knesset will change end to end. Many of the players who have been around many, many years in Israeli politics will disappear, and there will be new forces. And certainly, Israelis look up to us, those who saw the war coming 2 years before, who alerted, said the right things, and also those who showed leadership during the war and helped strengthen, the Israeli public and the government and the army to move steadily towards a decisive win. And I can tell you there will be a decisive win in this war. And following this great victory that we're going to enjoy soon, and we can see it already. I've been saying that for 2 years, but now it's easier to say it after Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, and the agreement we reached now. The job has not ended, but following this victory, there will be really an era of the golden age for Israel. Peace agreements, the economy will boom. There will be massive aliyah to Israel. It's going to be also baby boom. So we are looking really at a great, great future. We have to be resolute, strong, united, finish the job, and move towards a bright future.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing, and I agree with you. I see that happening. I do want to ask one last thing, and we'll keep it brief. You know, you mentioned that we need U.S. support and U.S. Backing to do any kind of annexation or any other key decisions. That's always been somewhat of an issue to me. And again, I'm just a young guy, and I don't have the ability to make these key decisions. I'm not in the Israeli government. But I know that Bibi has spoken. He gave a speech where he talks about Israel becoming more autonomous militarily, manufacturing more of its own weapons, not being so reliant on the US and maybe other countries. What do you feel about that? I know it's easier said than done. It's a huge challenge. We've had the US helping us and providing aid, etc. But the US also, especially with the Biden administration, has tried to push us to do things that weren't in our best interest. The whole two-state nonsense. Can we, in the near future, become fully self-reliant and then just trade with the US and do more importing and exporting? I believe that Israel could become even wealthier if it became more autonomous in that sense. Maybe scary to do. We've become so used to the way things are, but you have so many people in the US that don't like Israel, that are talking about how, oh, without America, yada yada yada. Now, I don't think that should be the reason we do or don't make decisions. But what's your take on just being more self-reliant?
Israel needs to be much more self-reliant, and Israel always needs to do what's good for Israel. And we saw during the war Israel taking very tough decisions against American policy. So definitely, we need to do what's best for Israel. But one thing we do need the U.S. support in the Security Council, in the UN. We cannot be sanctioned. We need the US to defend us. So when it comes to really, really big historical decisions, we need one thing from the US to say, you do what's best for you. We are going to defend you in the UN Council when they will try to sanction you. So as long as the US stands with us and vetoes any attempt to have a resolution against Israel, this is what we need. And I think when it comes to a decision that will impact the whole region and so on, it needs to be coordinated, and we have the support. We know what's the position of the administration, and this is why it's a defining moment, because once it's decided, and it doesn't matter afterwards which administration will be. When the embassy was moved to Jerusalem, that's it. It's game over. When the U.S. recognized the Golan Heights, that's it. You cannot take it back. It was recognized.
Mhm.
So once the U.S. gives its blessing, it cannot be undone. Once they agree to apply sovereignty, that's it. The sovereignty has been applied. You cannot even technically change it, because in Israel, to change it afterwards, you need 80 MKs, and you need a vote of the people, and the Israeli people are not going to change it. So this is why it's so crucial to have this agreement, and it has nothing to do with the fact that we need to be much, much, much more self-reliant. We need to produce our own munitions. We need big military industries. We don't need aid from the US. We need to change this kind of relationship. It cannot be based on aid. It should be based on partnership. Yes, I think the US can invest a lot of money in innovation, but partnership, not aid. We're not a third world country. We need to change the kind of relationship we have, and we need to definitely be able to defend ourselves by ourselves, and not find ourselves after 2 weeks of war begging for munitions. This is not something that Jewish people can have. Not the people that have experienced the Holocaust and so many wars. We have to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves.
I love that. Amir, I this is why I was so excited to speak to you. Really. I align with you on I don't I have to see more of your interviews. Maybe there's something I disagree with you on. I mean, we're human, but so far I just can't find anything that I don't agree with you with. So my last question before is, how do we get to the self-reliance? Is Israel taking steps to get there? Do you see that happening in the coming years?
No, it's happening already in the last 2 years. The dynamics of the war have changed everything. Our military industries are growing exponentially. We're becoming much more self-reliant. And self-reliance is about military industries, but it's also about energy. It's the gas, and the other abilities that will really make sure Israel, also talking about energy, is mostly self-reliant. It's about food. In many aspects, Israel needs to be much more self-reliant and ensure national security. This doesn't go against the idea of partnerships, of peace, of international trade. And when these peace agreements will come, Israel will become the Singapore of the world. The whole world trade will go through Israel. There will be a huge prosperity. We'll have relations with many, many countries. And at the end of the day, if you want to have a strong position globally, if you want many relations, you need to be strong. This is the way to do it. It's peace through strength, not through appeasement. And the stronger we become, the more respected we'll be, and the more international relations we have. And this is where it's moving. It's moving towards Israel, not just being a regional strong player, but a global player. And in this sense, we started in a very low point 2 years ago, and now we're in a completely different place, emerging from this war as one of the strongest countries in the world.
I love it. I love it. I think it's amazing. If you could though, if you could put in a word to the prime minister's uh, office, if you can ask him to maybe just knock down the Tachana Merkazit in Tel Aviv and build a nice one.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. More
I'm
important than what you do in Tel Aviv is settling the Negev and the Galil and the Jordan Valley, Judea and Samaria. We have to get prepared for also massive aliyah. I think anti-Semitism is not going to stop. It's going to go out of control. We have to get ready to absorb millions of Jews.
Mhm.
And the basic ideas of Zionism, aliyah, are relevant today just as they were 100 years ago.
Totally. I wasn't. I know I was. I seemed joking about the central bus station in Tel Aviv, but I really hope that they update that. I know to you, you might be like, that's totally not important to the conversation we're having. But it's wild to me that Israel's main city that hasn't just South Tel Aviv, because I was just watching Tommy Robinson. I had him on my show. I went to England to interview him, and he did it. He went around South Tel Aviv to speak to some of the migrants and whatever. Totally separate. We're not gonna. It's not the focus of the conversation, but just a thought. All right. So I know you have something to take care of. So I'm gonna let you go,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Bekif. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, tuning into another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. You can follow Amir on Instagram, on social media. You're on X as well, and all the other
Yeah.
platforms.
And I suggest to follow IDSF, idsf.org.il,
Yeah.
or the website, Hebrew, English, and all the social media is in their website, so you can find it.
Okay. Awesome. And you have your QR codes here, so people can also check that out. All right, guys. Subscribe, like, share. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.